Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. In this week's weekly lesson, we've been going through this story about Remembrance Sunday. Every year in November, British people, we have a ceremony to remember the war dead, those people who died during the two wars. Now, as part of that, something I mentioned in my weekly lesson is about the three faces of the government: the royal family, the church, and the military, and they all come together on Remembrance Sunday to have this big, special, almost religious ceremony to remember the war dead. Now, today in our media, the Archbishop of Canterbury has quit. Now, he's the head of the Church of England. And I want to give you some background to what or who the Archbishop of Canterbury is and why his resignation is so important. We'll then read a newspaper story about what happened to him. So basically, back in the day, way back in history, everyone, as you know, all of the countries here were Roman Catholic. And at one point in England's history, now I'm stressing England here because the situation is completely different in Scotland and Ireland and Wales. So the Church of England was created. King Henry VIII, he wanted a divorce, and the Catholic Church wouldn't give it to him. As you know, Henry VIII had 6 wives: Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour. I can't remember all of their names, I think. Let's see. I'll have to think about that. I'm missing one. You've got Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour. Then there was another one. Then Catherine Howard, Anne of Cleves. So there's one missing that I don't remember her name. But anyway, he divorced from his first wife. And the Pope said no. And so he said, okay, fine, I'll create my own church then, thank you. And he took all the money from the Catholic churches, created his own church, and broke from Rome. And that created the Church of England, where the king is the absolute head. It's very similar to the Catholic Church, but it's like an umbrella of many churches. It's not quite an easy thing to describe because they have many different beliefs and ideas within it. It's not like there's just one organization. It's a very big, huge political entity. Anyway, the Church of England happily continued, and the king or the queen is the head of it. So these days, King Charles, for example, when he became king, he also inherited the title as the supreme leader of the Church of England. And the man or the position which looks after the religious affairs for the king is the Archbishop of Canterbury. That's the man who is responsible for looking after the king's role as head of the Church of England. So the king is kind of like a pope, and many people actually see him that way. Frightening, isn't it? And he appoints the Archbishop of Canterbury to do his religious job. So effectively, this man who resigned yesterday is kind of really important. So that's a very brief summary of who he is, okay? Just to summarize some key points there. The Church of England was created hundreds of years ago as a breakaway from the Roman Catholic Church. The king is the head, and the king appoints a man, or a person at least, to be Archbishop of Canterbury, and that person is responsible for the king's religious role in society. The king doesn't get too involved in that. Of course, he's far too busy. He's the king after all. So yeah, the king sits as a kind of a pope in his religious role, and all of his religious duties fall to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, this man, the Archbishop of Canterbury, of course, it's an ancient role going all the way back to the beginning of the Church of England. He resigned yesterday over a big scandal, and it's made headline news because it seems he covered up some kind of scandal involving children. So that's not really so important, although that's the main part of the story, because what we're talking about today is who or what the Archbishop of Canterbury is. So the news story is important in that it's very serious, but that's not really what we're looking at. So we're going to read through this story today, but just to go over one more time, it's very, very important because he has a very important role in holding not only the church together in this country, but also he's very important around the world for the churches in our ex-colonies. Yeah, so it's kind of a big thing. Right, let's read this then. So, the Archbishop of Canterbury has quit after days of growing pressure over his failure to expose the Church of England's most prolific, dishonest man. Now, this is from the Metro. Okay, the Metro, as you probably know, is a newspaper which you get if you're traveling on the train or the bus. Sometimes they hand you a paper copy, or more often than not, you might see a digital copy. It says here, the Archbishop of Canterbury has quit after days of growing pressure over his failure to expose the Church of England's most prolific criminal. So basically, it was a man who hurt children, okay? And the Archbishop is admitting that he feels ashamed for not taking responsibility. It says here, a report has found that the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, he failed to act in 2013 despite knowing of concerns about barrister John Smythe, who hurt children at a summer camp for 4 decades. Now, I'm not going to go into details of what he actually did. If you want to know more about that, you can read it, but it's very hard reading and very sad reading. So just be warned if you are going to be looking at this story in more detail. It says here, he's the first leader to quit for the Church of England. It's more common for the leader of the nation's church to die in office than quit. And he's the first one who's actually left in all of the years of the existence of the Church of England. I mean, he only had 2 years left before he retired. You know, church people are always very old, aren't they? He was told about the problem in 2013, and he didn't tell the police. That's what the problem is here. Critics have welcomed his decision, saying more people must quit because it was not only him. Many people are supporting him, saying, yeah, he did the right thing to leave. But of course, like any other organization in the world, people are lining up for his job. There's a lot of people who want to move up the ranks, and you can imagine in a church, just like in the Catholic Church, you have to look over your shoulder in the corridors of power, the same as any political or even government institution. It's not really about the man, it's more about the people who are out to get you. So the media in the last few days had been building up a story saying that he should resign, and I think he was left without much of a choice. So everyone's happy that he's gone, saying that he protected someone who harmed children. I don't honestly know too much about him or his dealings with this, but I just wanted to let you know who he is, because this is a story which is very, very important in England, because it could spell the end of the church as we know it. A lot of criticism here, not only in this story, but in the media generally, is calling for the church and the state to separate. Now, this is very important because it is the national religion of England with the king at the head. A lot of the clergy, the people who run the Church of England, are actually in our upper chamber politically, the House of Lords, and they are there not as important individuals, but as the church. Many people are saying, well, only England and Iran actually have that privilege. So I think this morning on LBC, between 6 and 7 a.m. British time, they started examining whether this was true, whether Britain and Iran are the only two countries which actually sponsor religion. I don't know if that's true, but that's part of the criticism. And then the conversation evolved into religion being bad for society. I'm not sure I agree with that. Certainly, institutional religion might not be the best thing, but people are entitled to their faith, to believe in what they want. I'm not a big fan of institutions, I have to say, but, well, I don't mind a little bit of one-to-one or personal thoughts on religion. Sometimes it can give us a little bit of hope. But the institutions, these large political bodies like the Church of England, I think it's very clear where they're going to end up, especially when they have such scandals. However, having said that, the Church of England does do a lot of good work with its charities and the amount of money it spends trying to help poverty-stricken people. So it's very interesting. It says here, it will take months to find a successor to Justin Welby, that's his name. Church and government officials have already drawn up a list of candidates. Yeah, I'm sure they have. And it'll take around 6 months to appoint a new one. So effectively, what we're saying here is that the man who's the head of the Church of England, on behalf of the king, who's like the Pope here, has quit. And that doesn't look good on the royals either, I suppose. So big scandal, big scandal. Yeah, the Church of Scotland is something entirely separate. It has its own history, nothing to do with Henry VIII, because, of course, the country's joined long after they had their religious takeaways from what was called the Reformation. So the Reformation was when each country broke away from Rome. England did it with Henry VIII. Scotland did it with a guy called John Knox, which had nothing to do with marriage. And then your country, if you're in Western Europe, probably did the same. But for us, well, we still pay for the Church of England. And it's becoming more and more uncomfortable as a state-run religion. Well, hopefully that gives you some background info on who he is, or at least what his role is. I didn't mention much about the guy. His name is Justin Welby. He was ordained a priest in the 1990s, and he's been Archbishop of Canterbury since 2013. It's a face of the government, the moral face of the government, which makes it very, very important, because it's the place where the government and the church kind of meet. And behind the scenes in our government, the church is very, very involved. So there's big questions there about whether there should be more separate. Oh, look, it's Whoopi Goldberg's birthday. Oh, Gerald Butler as well. Oh, lovely. Oh, very nice, very nice. I just mentioned that because I saw it in the metro there, just to break away from the somber moment of the church. What's this? Oh, yeah. Emma Raducanu, tennis player. She's also 22 today, if you're interested. There we are. So that's just some stories from the same page as this one on the Metro. Today, Wednesday, the 13th of November, looking at the Metro, the UK edition. Right, that's it from me. See you all. Bye.